Hi guys, and welcome to week 5 of Word 110. I have a couple of announcements for you before I jump into the presentation. First is that all of you all should have gotten some feedback from me about your research topics, so please take a look at that. Some of you guys, I wanted to get some more narrow, specific affected communities, maybe a narrower problem. And some of you all will have to rework what your research topic is going to be. So make sure you take a look at that. Don't put it off. Otherwise, you could end up in a really bad position later on. Um, Second thing is that on Thursday, we are going to have an optional Zoom class meeting time where you can pop in, ask me questions. Um, any sort of thing about the rhetorical analysis, about your research topics, research questions, where the class is going, anything that you want to ask, feel free to pop in and talk to me about, or just chat, that's fine too. And that will be during class time on this Thursday of week 5. So what we're going to be talking about today is your rhetorical analysis moving into the second draft and looking at that larger structure. I did want to go over, I'm not going to go through this entire PowerPoint just because you can read through the pre-writing stuff mostly yourself, but I did want to talk about kind of where you've already been in this class so far and where you're moving to. So you guys have all chosen a topic that includes a specific problem in a specific affected community. Like I said, some of you guys are still working on that specific part, but do be thinking about how you can narrow everything down. You chose a possible research question that you will continue to hone going forward into that second unit where we have our proposal video. You found an argumentative artifact where rhetor is trying to convince the audience to believe their view, and the subject of this artifact concerns your research topic. It doesn't have to be an answer to that research question you have, but it is somehow related to your topic and will hopefully inform you as you're going forward about what the other people's arguments about this topic are, and maybe even help you with sources moving forward for your annotated bibliography and your final photo essay. And the last thing you've already done is you've already written at least 350 words. That's an initial response to your artifact. So that might be a summary or description of your artifact, or it could be moving into the rhetorical situation. But that hopefully helped you get over that hump of, there's nothing on this blank page and I have to write something. And that kind of serves more as a free writing exercise, getting those initial thoughts down on paper. And this week we'll be moving into substantial second draft where your essay actually starts to coalesce. So how we're doing that is we're looking at structure and we're looking at outlines. So we're dealing with how can we outline this essay, create a roadmap for it in order to make it a lot easier to write your second rough draft. So I will touch on maybe a couple of these pre-writing steps slash tips. This is a really, really good thing to do, to just go through and take notes on as you're kind of gearing up to that second draft. I highly recommend just going through all these steps and following along as you read or watch or listen to your artifact. I'll hit on a couple of these. This is the first one you should have already done in that initial response. This one I'll touch on because a lot of you guys seem to struggle a little bit with audience and identifying who that target audience is. So a lot of you all in the kind of practice questions that we've been doing are looking at audience in terms of that broad general audience. So the audience is any American, or the audience is, well, anyone who happens to see this speech. But you want to think about more specific questions. So think about the context of the artifact. Where was it published? Where was it displayed or shared? If it's a speech, probably it was a speech given to a specific group of people. Who are those people? And think about that as the target audience. If it was published somewhere like the New York Times, a more specific target audience would be people who read the New York Times. You also want to think about who are they trying to convince. So are they trying to change someone's mind with their argument? So think about maybe President Obama gave several gun control speeches during his presidency, and those speeches were geared towards people who didn't believe gun control was necessary. He was trying to convince them gun control is necessary. So his audience would be people who don't believe gun control is necessary. You see how you can get a more specific audience by asking those questions of who are they trying to convince or who are they trying to persuade. And you can also think about what rhetorical strategies are used, or rhetorical appeals like logos, pathos, and ethos, and how how they influence the way an argument is made to specific target audiences. We've talked about that a lot. I will point out in the town branch, pages 7 through 15, it has a review of those rhetorical appeals. Highly recommend you guys look at that again. Some of you guys still were struggling to grasp the concept of what exactly those rhetorical appeals are. And if you're one of those people, then you want to really get a concrete understanding of ethos, pathos, and logos and what they mean. Otherwise, you're really going to struggle to accurately use them to analyze whatever artifact you have. So I highly recommend looking at the town branch in pages 7 through 15 for that. And then the last thing that I'll mention is thinking about effectiveness and whether or not your artifact convinces you, why it doesn't. Thinking about the medium of delivery, if it's a text or a speech or a song, and how that kind of might be geared or not geared, might miss the mark towards that target audience. Okay, so the main thing I want to talk about today is structure and creating a roadmap for your essay. So this week you'll be writing an outline, which is my favorite thing in the world because it makes writing an essay so easy. Basically, with an outline, you're going to be kind of giving yourself a roadmap for each paragraph of your essay, and we'll go through what all of these paragraphs will include. So the first one is your introduction, which should introduce you to the topic of the essay. You'll have a hook at the beginning of your introduction. That might mean it's an interesting quote from your artifact, or it's a brief introduction to the problem or affected community that your artifact discusses. It basically hooks your audience into wanting to read the rest of your essay. And then the last sentence of your introduction is going to be the thesis statement. You've probably heard about thesis statements a lot in high school. I won't belabor the point. It's going to be 1 to 2 sentences, usually one, that kind of gives us an idea of this is my main idea, this is my what I'm going to prove through this essay, and here's kind of a roadmap for where I'm going. If you're really struggling with the thesis statement, I highly recommend the point-by-point structure of kind of a list of here's the evidence that I'm going to use to support this argument I'm making. In this case, it'll be here's the evidence that I'm going to use to support my claim that this artifact is using the logos, ethos, and pathos. So we'll look at a possible example. I won't watch the video with you of Aragorn's speech at the Black Gate, but if you've seen Lord of the Rings, or haven't, watch this video so that you can see that speech. And then I've got kind of a sample thesis here of how you can think about what a rhetorical analysis thesis statement looks like. So in Aragorn's speech at the Black Gate, we're saying, here's what my artifact is straight away. He effectively, so we're making claim that his speech is effective. That is what you want to do, is argue whether or not your speech is effective. He effectively rallies the soldiers. You've got that specific audience of the soldiers who were there at the Black Gate by presenting himself as relatable but confident, so ethos, and by invoking emotional language, pathos, purposely avoiding logos because he knew that his audience feared the logistics of the situation. So you know that in this hypothetical essay that I'm writing, I'm going to have that thesis statement at the end of the introduction. Paragraph 1 is going to be about him being relatable but confident in his language. Second paragraph is going to be about that pathos, so emotional language. And then the third paragraph is going to be about why exactly we don't see logos in his speech. And then you'll have your conclusion. So this is a really good way to organize your essay and think about breaking it down as far as paragraphs go. You've got that roadmap for, I know my first body paragraph is going to be about the first thing I mentioned in my thesis statement. So in a body paragraph, you're going to first have a topic sentence. So this is like a mini thesis statement for each paragraph that relates back. So in the Aragorn speech, you know my first paragraph because my thesis statement talked about him being relatable but confident first. The topic sentence for that paragraph might look like, Aragorn connects with his audience by admitting he has the same fears as they do, and his confidence that they will succeed despite these fears makes him believable as a strong leader. So we're talking about him being relatable by connecting with his audience, we're talking about his confidence, and we're saying he's effective. He's a strong leader. So the effectiveness is your main claim from your thesis statement, and you're tying it back to that relatable and confident point from your thesis statement as well. So we know we're following the roadmap, and then this whole paragraph is going to be about that point. And it's going to include your evidence that supports that topic sentence, just like your thesis statement has all of these paragraphs that support your main claim in your thesis statement. So you want to think about your body paragraphs like stacks of Oreo cookies. You're going to have 3 different layers within your paragraphs to talk about your evidence and explanation. So the first thing is a signal phrase when you're quoting or using source material. The second thing is, of course, the actual source material, and then the third layer is going to be your explanation. You need all 3 of these things, and you repeat them over and over throughout your paper to be effective and to make sure that you've got a good balance between your own words and whatever that source material is. It's really easy to just mostly use your source material and quotes versus your own words. So types of source material that you might use in this essay, you might use quotes, especially if you're looking at something that's textual versus a visual artifact, obviously. If you use the same exact words, you want to use quotation marks. That's a direct quote. You might use a summary. That's an overview of the main ideas of whatever your source is. You'll use that at the beginning when you describe the main content of your artifact. And then you might also use paraphrase, which is turning something into your own words, not just using a thesaurus to change each word individually. But you get my point. You'll use all 3 of these things throughout your essay. Don't only rely on quotes. You want to use quotes when it's really important to maintain that initial wording, or you're just trying to analyze specific words that are used. So I'll let you, I think possibly we already watched this video, but I'll let you watch it on your own. And then if I'm using this as an example for analyzing it, and using that Oreo method in a body paragraph, I might say, in the advertisement, sad music plays as the dog waits for its owner to come home. This image of the dog lying down, juxtaposed with the depressing music, is meant to make the audience feel guilty about risking leaving their dog ownerless by driving drunk. So in the signal phrase, which is bolded, that tells us where the source material is found. It's found in the